Testing. Yeah. Okay, we ready?
Well, are they ready? Is everything set up?
Check, check, check. Just put all three of them right in front of his face. One of them will get it.
Just move them in close, Casey. Move them in close.
And you still need to talk into it.
Testing, testing.
That's
Testing.
Just like that. So lean over.
Okay, we ready? Call this workshop to order. The purpose of discussing and reviewing the budgets, allocations, and wings, I guess. Okay, so all my glasses on, so I'm working on that. So, the roll call of members: Ms. Howerton, Mr. Brantley, Ms. Shoup, Ms. Compton-Twist, myself, Mr. Durrance, Superintendent Longshore, Board Secretary Wilburn, and various members of the school staff. And then just as we go through, we're going to start with the purpose of the workshop, which I just discussed. Opening remarks by chair. Not a whole lot today because it's pretty straightforward with the budget. Superintendent opening comments if she wants to give any of those. Staff presentation, board discussion, and then we'll have the public comment for 3 minutes per speaker at the end. So I'll pass that over to Superintendent Longshore at this point.
Okay, just thank everybody for putting these pieces together today. I especially want to thank Mike and Diane Rivers for their work on putting together the ESSER presentation. I'll be reviewing those dollars. You guys had asked me to pull that information together, so they have spent a little bit of time putting those pieces together. So at the end of the workshop today, we'll review that.
Okay, I'd like to start with the allocation. There's just one change in student services. We're decreasing one psychologist that was charged to ESSER funds, and we're increasing one content area specialist, an MTSS. And Melissa's here to explain why.
Can I share your mic? Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. I had asked to look at considering switching that school psychologist position to a content area specialist for MTSS. That position actually has been allocated for, this will be going into the second year. Last year for the 21-22, I gotta get my school years right, 21-22 school year with the ESSER funds we originally allocated as a school psychologist position. The reason for that was in most areas, in many areas, the discipline that does oversee that work of MTSS is from the discipline of school psychology. So we advertised that for a number of cycles of advertising. We then looked at converting that to a resource teacher position. We did advertise through that area and we did not pick up initially from that advertisement, and then towards the moving into the second semester of last school year, we did have an individual serve in that position, in the resource teacher position for MTSS. So when we came back to allocations again this year, I asked for that to be back to school psychology, because that again is the discipline that traditionally kind of oversees that type of work within the district, and have tried to, again, through advertising cycles, looked at school psychologists for that. In the meantime of that occurring, I currently am now looking for an additional school-based school psychologist to fill the place of the evaluation kind of needs on our campuses. So a thought was, if it were possible to look at advertising in the area of a content area specialist, it would do a couple of things. Still could place in there a school psychologist if that individual applied in there, but it would broaden the scope of the work. I do continue to believe that the discipline of school psychology is really the lead discipline in that, but we have many places, even our state discretionary project of problem-solving PSRTI project has district contact individuals whose main discipline is not that of school psychology. So main criteria for that is a person that's going to facilitate collaboration, be able to oversee some of the work. We do have a individual allocation for the MTSS coach at each elementary campus, and we have a half of an allocation at each secondary campus. And so the work of this person will need to be able to work with administration, work with those coaches, work with teachers on the implementation of that process. And so I did speak with each of you and did, at the time of our conversation, did not have some dollar numbers. So I did ask for some numbers on that. And the contracted added person, if they had at least 10 years experience, with salary and benefits, we're looking at about $106,000 to fill that position. It is a 12-month position at an 8-hour position. Currently, to do a 196 day at an 8-hour at $72 an hour is what I currently do for a contracted psychologist. That would be $112,000. So it would be less days, same amount of hours, but less days to do a contracted school psychologist. It's about a $6,000 increase in the amount to fund that particular position.
Really, with the $112,000, that's without benefits for that individual?
That's correct, no benefits. Yeah,
They'd be on our insurance and have retirement?
They would not.
Area specialist.
Content area specialist would be on it, and that salary did include the benefits package for them. And they would, I guess I need to, as our direct hire, they would be on a FRS.
So the 106 includes all the benefits and, okay.
Yes,
Wanna
ma'am.
Make sure we have that straight.
Yep.
Thank you.
And that's 12 months.
12 months, 8 hours,
8
yes.
hours.
Melissa, oh, go ahead.
So with doing the content area specialist, do we have what minimum qualifications?
We do.
How broad?
Yep, I could tell you what those are.
Fit that, will
Yep.
fit this?
Yeah, so the minimum content, so on our job descriptions, we have a minimum that we often call that the items in the box, right? And then we have other things that can be adjusted. But the minimum qualifications for a content area specialist is a valid Florida teacher educator certificate, a master's degree from an accredited institution, or if they have a bachelor's degree from an accredited institution, they have at least 10 years of successful teaching or experience in the relative field, knowledge of the curriculum or the discipline and the program design in which they're hired for, physical requirements of up to 20 pounds of force or 10 pounds as frequently as necessary, lifting, crawling, kneeling, bending, stooping, and then satisfactory clearance of a criminal history background.
And currently, Mr. Doty was this the year you're talking about, was he in that position?
He was in the resource teacher position, yes, ma'am.
Melissa, you want to talk a little bit about some of the work that you've been doing with Branching Minds? Because you have done a great lift there with really exciting work moving forward. Just
Sure.
to give them a little bit of information on that.
Sure. So we, the company Branching Minds is an organization or company that we've been working with since probably the second semester of this school year. We have 4 schools that have been, had a little bit higher level of some training and implementation with them. Their leaders at that school have had some orientation. Their MTSS teams at the school has had a day of orientation. Essentially, Branching Minds has a couple of components to it. One is it's a platform or a web-based platform, essentially, in which it brings all of the data that we have on students into one point. So it helps in the ease and the lift of some of the monitoring processes of it. It also, embedded in that particular platform, has where we can access and look at get connected to evidence-based programs. So when we have students that have particular deficits or we've gone through a problem solving process, how can we connect them to evidence-based interventions? And then the third part is really in professional development and helping us in what we call infrastructure development. And that's really a process that within the last week, 3 days last week, a core group of district level administrators, school-based administrators, principals. So we had a principal from elementary, an assistant principal from middle, principal from high school, some teachers, and some individuals that are serving in MTSS coaching roles right this minute, moment. Our content specialists were with us, and we worked through what they call an infrastructure, which got us to this is basically our handbook, our system, so that we can be implementing MTSS with fidelity in the same manner across each one of our campuses. We have, as we've been going through, updating our strategic plan, anticipate, and we're working on writing out now that a strategy in Goal 2 will be just that, the MTSS development and the implementation of that being implemented with fidelity at each one of our schools across the district. So those pieces and those activities have been included in our district plan in two areas. One, academic tiered support, and then in addition to that, I'm looking at expanding our schools and our youth and our implementation of positive behavior intervention and support, so that we can also support campuses in the behavioral mental health side of MTSS. You're welcome.
I know we were looking for a psychologist, but was Mr. Doty offered this other position?
Mr. Doty was not offered this position.
Okay.
So that's that for the allocations. Thank you, Ms. Blackman.
All right, the next budget I'd like to talk about is food service. I'm going to have Tim come up and give you the state of food service.
The state food service.
Go all day.
I was going to give you it's not great, y'all, but that was too short for Mike. So the good news is that this year, you want me to do it?
Mr. Thompson, I think Ms. Brown used to do presentations for us that would be like 45 minutes or so.
I know, and useful as if you have insomnia, you can replay it back in your mind, I think. But
You can't stretch it?
I can stretch it as long as 5 slides, which is a 67% increase over last year. So he asked for more, I gave more, but, so last year, we don't have our numbers yet this year. Usually when I do my presentation, we already have closed out for the year, so I don't really know where I'm at right now. The tracking system that I use says that I'm okay, not great, but okay. But what we think we can do is look at what meals are in the books already for the school year, and over the school year, we served about 250,000 more meals last year. Most of that's in lunch. We had a slight reduction in breakfast because after the COVID procedures, some of the schools came off of breakfast in the classroom. We just don't serve as many meals when they have to go to the cafeteria. But snacks were up, and our super snack program was up, and we also did, I think we were offered 9 schools for FFVP. It's not on here, and I think that 7 of our sites, elementary sites, did FFVP, where they get a fresh fruit or vegetable snack every day, or 3 days a week, rather. So what's going on in our world? So I realized, I think, somewhere between 20 and 25% increase in food costs over the course of this year. And right now, in the next 3 months, they're thinking that we're going to see another average of 67%. And while we generally get semi-annual or annual price guarantees from our manufacturers, some of them are not willing to do that because of some of the things on this. So right now there's a lockdown in China, and while we have Buy American stipulations in place, we don't buy any food from China. They supply an enormous amount, more than half of the fertilizers that's used in agriculture. The Ukraine conflict, they supply 25% of wheat, and that's a component that we have every day in all our meals. And H5N1 avian flu has been reported in about 2/3 of the states. It hasn't quite reached the southeast yet, but we have North Carolina, South Carolina, Arkansas, and Georgia, where there are major chicken and turkey, poultry farms, chicken and turkeys, both for egg laying and for meat. And we haven't seen them here yet, but we have an expectation, and Tyson, Pilgrim's Pride, and Gold Kiss all have facilities in those areas. So based on all that, there are other countries that have become, more risk averse, and about 20 of them have stopped exports. And really, the only one that affects us big is Indonesia has shut down much of its exporting, and they provide most of the world's palm oil. And palm oil is not something you go and put on your salad. It's not something you probably use at home, but food manufacturers use it in vast quantities, and so we're a little bit uncertain about that. Other things, the distribution disruption that's been happening as far as things moving around. 20% at the end of May, 20% of the global shipping container fleet was stuck somewhere, somehow, either behind a boat that couldn't move or just didn't have people to move stuff. We also have been dealing with rising fuel costs, which has been causing an issue with some of our manufacturers and our distribution. And so some of our manufacturers are coming back that maybe the cost of their inputs hasn't gone up significantly, except for the cost to get them delivered to them and for them to deliver the food to our distribution centers, and the same thing with distribution centers. And then obviously we have $15 an hour that's going to be implemented soon. And so right now, Mike and I have a conflict based on what numbers that I have seen are, but it looks like it's only a 15% increase to our total labor budget for next year, but that's still not insignificant for us. The actual budget itself, 90% of our revenue now comes from the feds. Well, actually almost 96%, maybe a little bit more than 96% because we get commodities from the federal government, but our reimbursement is almost 90%, and because we don't charge students for any meals. And then state reimbursement and local revenue is a pittance that still represents, $330,000 a year, but it's still it's very small compared to the rest. And then next year's projected expenses, about 58% of it is from salaries, which is higher than generally I like it to be. I'd like it to be around 48%. That's not always possible. And then food and commodities are up to almost 34%. And that's the preponderance of our budget. Our total budget this year, the way I have it written down, is $9.7 million. Some of that usually...
Increase in salary and benefits is because of the $15 an hour increase there.
And that's all I've got in food and nutrition. You guys have questions?
It concerns me that a large amount of our monies come from federal because we could be in trouble, folks. We'll just see.
The new refrigerator freezer building that's being built, that's going to help as far as buying more quantities, or how is it?
So right now, this year, since January, well, I guess I signed the contract. I didn't sign the contract. I entered into an arrangement with Adams Cold Storage in December to start. Not only were they going to be housing our commodities, because U.S. Foods used to house our commodities for us, for our brown box, our direct delivery, but also we wanted to be able to have the flexibility to bring some food in directly from manufacturers. And so we secured a truck of chicken from Rich Chicks, various types. We supplied, we secured some lasagna roll-ups and things like that. And since between January and now, we have a small, holds 10 pallets at a time, freezer truck. And Adams Cold Storage is in Plant City, not Plant City. It's over in the Tampa area. And we've brought in about 6,000 cases that way outside of what we bring in through our normal distribution channels. In addition to that, we've brought in a couple of hundred other cases from a paper distribution center that we could get directly. What we're hoping is that the freezer will do is, right now, I'm not willing to let 10 pallets, or even if we only got half of that distributed over the course of a day, right now I'm not willing to let it sit on a freezer truck overnight because we're risk averse. And so right now, if they're late loading the truck up there, it really puts a pinch on us to make sure we get it distributed down here, because it's my office staff and my admin team, we're the ones who actually go out and do it. We've done about 6,000 cases distributed so far this year. So hopefully having that will allow us to, not only if we get small opportunity buys where we could bring in something, it'll probably hold, the way I figure it'll probably hold about a semi and a half of pallets. Not only will it give us an opportunity if we get something like that to bring it in here, but also if we still plan on doing our own commodities because of the way transportation's been. Scotland, who has the contract for the state to do commodity distribution, charges an exorbitant rate. mostly because they can't find drivers. And so we're hopeful that we will be able to bring things in when we have to bring in a truck of frozen food, if we would be able to stock it there and distribute it from there and less of a time-sensitive manner. Nothing else? I'm off the hot seat. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you. I know that your world has changed drastically over the last 2 years, and we appreciate you finding new ways to, and people will say, can't believe what the schools are serving, and I said, well, you know how you have a hard time finding food in different places? We're having the same thing, and then they 100% understand.
Well, there's no rhyme or reason. So today eggs are up, well, maybe there's other things, and we see sometimes it's packaging, it's not even the product, so the inputs aren't coming in for certain things, but, or they are, and you're like, well, I can get this, but in our world, sometimes the packaging we get, things like that are different. So it's been a mess.
You cannot anticipate.
So Tim, I'm wondering, is there catering anywhere in the future for you? Or right now, we're still just hanging on with just trying to get our kids served every day?
Right now, it is our intent, Barbara and I have been in communication about we want to start up, we're doing full court press next year, probably on a la carte food and on catering.
Okay.
And so hopefully Cisco will be able to do that, and if not, we're going to find some alternate ways to support it, because it does a lot for us beyond the fact that we can earn a small amount of money doing it. It also does, we get a lot of goodwill because people see us do something other than what's sitting inside the four corners of the school train.
Yeah, we miss that a lot, so hopefully a gala this next year. Good deal.
Thank you.
Okay, the next budget I talked about, the debt service. Basically, we just have two debt service left. The racing revenue bonds, we bonded back in 2014, it's about $3.3 million. Debt service is about $223,000 a year.
So
And that
Mike,
goes-
where are you on the
Yeah.
sheet that you're talking about? I
think
don't
it's
think
this
that everybody's with you.
This sheet right here.
Yep. Okay. So the numbers that you're referring to, maybe if you can just,
Yeah, the racing revenue bonds is about $223,000 debt service a year, and it goes through 2042. And when we get close to that, you're probably gonna wanna do another revenue bond, because we share this money with the county. If you don't do it, then they'll take the money. So,
It's coming to that over.
I won't be here to do it for you, but you can have somebody else do it. The other issues that the cops issued, we issued back in 2006 and 10 and refinanced. It's about $4,079,000 annual debt service, and that goes through 2032. That'll free up roughly $4,000, $4 million, $4,307,000. Any questions on debt service? Okay, the next item I'd like to talk about is the capital project list. This sheet here. Now that the state has passed our ability to purchase buses with the half-cent sales tax, have you got this sheet here?
Got it.
got it, okay.
Okay. Now that we're able to use the half-cent sales tax for buses, Willie's come to me and asked me to try to see if we get 13 new buses ordered. They take over 6 months to get in, so the cash flow is not going to be a problem because I won't have to pay for these until probably next February or March. But the cost of them have gone up. It's $127,000 per bus now. But they'll come with the radio, the video camera, and all of those things on it.
Not a driver?
Not a driver.
No driver comes with it?
So since it wasn't supposed to go into effect till July, we can order them before?
We'll probably do the PO. It's under a state contract. We'll do the PO on July 1st or as soon as thereafter. The next page is the wings we've been talking about. I had Frank run some numbers, and he estimates that it'll be about $6,493,600 per wing, and that's about 12 classrooms. If you want to do fewer classrooms, it may cost less, but that's an estimate for 12. And they did the same thing at Woodlawn. So, if you look at this sheet here, we're going to talk about how to finance them if you want to finance them. The current cash balance in the half-cent sales tax is $7,147,676. The remaining projects on the approved project list is $10,795,891. Cash needed to complete the project list is $3,648,215. Our estimated cash collections from June of this year through December was $3,650,918, which gives us a positive balance of $2,703. And typically, we have about $3 million on the current project list that he's not able to do, and it carries over to the following year. So $3 million of that will be still available in December.
Trying to pay as we go as far as that, do something, if we hold off for a year and use it versus, because
You get
the
everything in
interest over
yeah.
the term of that, or the, length of that,
So I thought you were trying to go to the end.
it was like $3 million
Yeah.
in
for nothing.
interest after, the
Yeah,
payments that you had in the last
the
program.
next, if you're gonna finance it, I had John Ford from Ford and Associates, run me some numbers. To borrow $13 million, we have, and he suggested doing a bank loan rather than a public offering. To borrow $13 million, the cost of issuance about $100,000, so that's $13,100,000. If you flip the page, the market is not real good to borrow money, by the way. And he only got a hold of one bank, so this might be still high. I mean, if we do a competitive selection for the bank, we could probably get a lower interest rate, but it's 3.530. And you can see the debt service for the next 13 years. It'd be about $1,201,000 per year. So you would be committing $1,201,000 of your half-cent sales tax for the next 13 years. And we get about $6.5 million a year.
And that'd be, interest is $3.7 million over the term,
That's correct.
which is half one of our additions.
So the other suggestion, if we were to
If you wanted to
bank our
do
money,
pay-as-you-go, then you'd have to pare down you'd have to delete projects you currently have if you wanted to use this particular project here, because we've already committed $10 million. But you'd have to, my guess is you do $2 million a year for the next 6 years. And so you build one building in 3, and the next building 3 years later if you wanted to pay as you go. But then between the buses and the holding that reserve for the buildings, that's about half your half-cent sales tax.
so in the 3 years, we'd have the funding then, if we were to do that.
You
to
probably,
build
after the
one
after the second year, as long as you get $4 million, you can probably move forward with the project. By the time it's complete, we'll have the other $2 million.
With no overruns, and the economy stays the same.
But Frank, how long is it gonna take probably to do this project, do these two? What's the timeline?
Do a wing,
Yes, sir.
you're probably looking at about a year and a half.
I think the way Bill was talking about it, it was
It's
gonna
doable.
work out.
Yeah, and we don't know what the economy's gonna do. I can't see construction going the way it's going right now to where, hopefully materials will come down some and be more readily available in the next year to 2 years. I just, the 3.7 million in interest just bothers me as
Yeah,
far as that goes. If we can wait another year and a half, 2 years, and then get started in a third year,
So you want me to hold back $2 million a year for the half-cent sales? Is that beginning in 22, 23?
now, but also, let's don't forget, as far as price of everything's going up. So what is there going to be increase? Everything we buy is going up. So at that point, so is the sales tax going up also. So proportionally, if everything's gone up 20%, our revenue should go up 20% also, wouldn't it?
It will, I mean,
Maybe,
it
but the
has,
economy could get bad, and then it drops slightly
At
too.
least for the next year, we know
Yeah,
there are 2,
yeah.
Yeah.
so I mean, when I get the estimates for next year, it just depends and see, I'll project it based on our current collections for this year.
So hold for a year and then revisit possibly
I
to,
assume when I bring the project list to you next December, you want me to hurry.
Can we
Do
start
the
the-
engineering
yeah,
and that,
that's
I'd
what
like
I'm
to start that process, so
Okay.
we're ready,
I agree with that,
And that's
yeah.
what I think Mr. Brantley
Maybe
had mentioned
engineering
in
site
his-
work we
yeah.
can afford to do now, You know, if relocating the portables is gonna be a big deal with some of this too.
It breaks
You
up
know,
some of that expense, yeah.
Get the engineering, site work, and portable relocation, and then at that point, you'd be able to,
If you do the,
Both,
if you,
both sites are present a different, unique,
I know.
Challenges.
challenge that we'll have to do, and that may be good a year prior to, so.
Frank, what do you think the cost of just doing that would be? Do you have just a ballpark of what we might be looking at just to do that site work, to do the engineering?
Lake Country's just gonna be a beast in itself, taking all those portals where we want to put this building and
Moving
placing
them.
them somewhere else and recreating a whole sidewalk, you know, you're gonna dump several $100,000 in both sites easily. Woodlawn, don't know exactly where we put the building, leaning more towards where the PE building sits because it's closer to core, and then pushing that out to PE further, almost like we did Lake Placid Elementary for the addition.
But our half-cent
So-
sales tax could handle that. I mean, we could handle that.
but I don't think, I think we need to do engineering on both of them and get rolling on that. I don't think we need to do site work on both of them, because if we're gonna do one project before the other, we don't want site work to sit for 4 years before we get going. Whichever one's selected to go first, I would say do site work, engineering on that one, plus engineering on the
I
second.
think our intent was try to bring before you, get an architect, professional under contract. You know, we did it years and years ago when we first locked somebody down. You know, the county has one, but it's projects less than $4 million. This will present a different animal, so we have to get our own kind of thing, so I'm gonna find a date we could present to you, a selection few that you would pick an architect professional to proceed.
Do you have a preference, Board, of which project we would move forward with first, Woodlawn or Lake Country?
I would say
I'm
Woodlawn's
fine
gonna
with
grow
Lake Country,
faster, but I don't know. You want Lake Country,
I
okay.
think Woodlawn's maxed.
They're at a
I think they're gonna grow
full house.
faster.
I think let's look at as far as the numbers, and let
Yeah.
the numbers decide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Data driven.
Yeah. In addition to that, Leah Sauls from the county has reached out. You know, they're really wanting to move forward with that impact study. I think they'll be bringing a recommendation to our board of asking us to participate in that study and the payment of starting that study. I think there was about $30,000 would be our part of it to do the study. We would,
Bringing back the impact fees.
yes, ma'am.
Study.
They was gonna study the, possibility of that. So there seems to be some interest there.
I think it's gonna get down because the economy is gonna go down, and it's just, that's not gonna work.
At some point, yeah, it's got to, it always does.
Yeah, so anyway, I think that's out there as well, as more conversation about that. I don't know how that will move forward. I think that they were proposing smaller amounts of impact fee, but we will be able to have someone on that advisory group, so.
Are you looking right at Bill when you say
I
that?
would like to be on that,
I was gonna say, he
Yeah,
would be my
yeah.
choice.
I'd be willing to do that.
Yeah, so I'd asked her if we had a seat at the table, and she said, do you want one? I said, yes, we
Got
do.
to have
Yeah.
one.
We had one last time, yeah.
So anyway, we'll see where we end up with that.
You know, can I just bring up something as far as the county goes? At the end of, the conference in Tampa, we went to the small school breakout. And one of the things I think was Henry County is doing is they worked with the county, and this probably is not the right place to bring it up, but I wanna make sure we tell people that the county is taking away county tax on houses and homes for teachers, firefighters, police, and I'm trying to think, you know, there are people that make the county work, but are also not paid much, compared to other people in a way to make housing more affordable. And I don't know if that's something we can bring to our county, but,
Henry is the county?
I'm pretty
I can
sure it was
reach out to
Henry
the
County.
superintendent there. Okay.
I'm not sure you'll be able to do that with school taxes, but county tax possibly.
yeah, it was the county tax. The county waived the tax, I guess the housing tax, the building, I'm not sure exactly what tax it is, but to make it more affordable.
I thought they were gonna add something as an exemption currently also for teachers and law enforcement. I think they were adding an exemption besides your homestead exemption.
Yeah, it was for, to make affordable housing for these people.
Yeah,
Okay.
no.
Because that was a problem
That was, yeah.
in every district. We probably had 30 different districts at that meeting.
Okay, I'll definitely reach out there.
Okay, that's all I have. You want to do the,
The ESSER?
ESSER.
Sure. Have the clicker, Ms. Bullhorn? I don't think I've given you anything yet. So again, we'll get Mike and Diane to jump in anywhere on this, but I do appreciate you guys putting this together for us, to give us a review of our plan, what we sent to Tallahassee, what was approved in our plan, how we're moving forward with it, and where our funds are at this point. So the ESSER $1, we had a little over $4 million. These particular funds were to be used for assessing the student learning gaps from COVID, accelerating student learning from closing that gap, ensuring that we have the safety and health of all of our students, supporting that instructional continuity plan. You remember we all worked together at the district and with our schools to how are we going to move forward when everything was shut down, so to support that. And then the provision of the equitable services for our private schools. So that was really the directive from ESSER 1 of what we were needing to use this particular monies on. And so this is what we did use it on. The reopening task force supplemental pay for our leaders, it was about $200,000 for that. The sanitizing and cleaning that we enhanced was about $500,000. Am I reading that right? $500,000. Increasing our technology with our Chromebooks when we all went virtual, we had about $800,000 there. The Highlands virtual staff, when we went from 80 to 1,800, had about $1 million there. In our COVID leave, so thankful for that, we had $168,000 in that we used out of ESSER 1. The summer school, we enhanced our summer school, so we had a more robust summer school. We had $700,000 that we spent with that, and then the indirect cost was $141,000. So that's the ways that we used our ESSER 1 funds. Our private schools, we had about $364,000 that went to the private schools out of those dollars. After ESSER 1, then the private schools received their funding directly to them. It didn't run through our ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, but in ESSER 1, we had our proportionate share that we had to pay for them. So that was ESSER 1. ESSER 2 was broken up in 4 areas. Academic acceleration, which was a little over $4 million. Non-enrollment assistance was $900,000. Technology assistance, $1.1 million. And then a lump sum of $16 million. So we'll go through each one of those areas so you have a better understanding there. So for the academic acceleration, moving forward with our Highlands virtual teachers and staff, that was $1.5 million. The homebound teachers was about $108,000. Our ESOL resource teacher and federal programs resource teacher was $104,000. We increased our credit recovery teachers at the middle school and high school to about $65,000. Supplemental testing resource teachers at each high school, $265,000. Contracted speech services, we weren't able to fund those, and so we couldn't find them to fund them. We wanted to fund them, but couldn't find them to fund them. $630,000 in textbooks. Extra pay for our summer school instruction, about $500,000 there. Summer school curriculum and materials, let's say $46,000. Additional desk and chairs for social distancing, $26,000. Study Island and Amplify Reading, that was instruction. M-class assessment supports, am I reading that right? $521,000. SAT test fees, SAT test fees, $3,000. Consultation for solution trees, that's our PLC training that we'd gone through, and restorative practices, $59,000. And transportation, about $33,000. So all of this was approved through DOE, and that's how we have spent the ESSER 2s. The non-enrollment monies, we had $125,000 that we spent with social workers and MTSS resource teachers. That was some of the increases Melissa was talking about. 6 supplemental clerks, 2 positions for student services is what we allocated and had, but those weren't all funded either, so there was $40,000 that we were able to use with that. DOE gave us flexibility for expenses that we incurred through our strategic plan, so the computer equipment to support our schools, we took some of that money, $580,000, to have that one-to-one for our computers. We were able to use from this particular area.
What were the total ESER $2?
The total amount of the
Yes,
ESER two,
Twenty-two.
I have a slide specifically
Okay,
for
good.
that. Yeah, I have a
I
slide
can't ask that quick.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've got a slide specifically for that. The ESER two for technology assistance, that was that third area. The part-time assistive technology teacher was $31,000. Computers for the virtual instruction and the licensing was $881,000. Computer equipment to support school, to maintain that one-to-one, we had another $214,000 out of that. And then our audio-visual materials for virtual school was $7,000. So out of that particular area, that was the technology assistance within the grant. ESER two, the lump sum, that was the big amount. Supplemental teachers for HVS, that was funded in ESER one, it rolled over into ESER two, and that's about $500,000. Health technicians, $7,000 in that account. The accountant for ESER and the ARP implementation was $54,000. The facilities manager, we had that slotted in here, and Frank still hasn't found someone to go into that position yet. Not that he's not trying, but nothing there yet. The ABM contract for the sanitization and the cleaning of supplies is about $620,000. Remodeling and renovation projects for our AC equipment, cafeteria buildings, $2 million. Computer equipment and software, $1.1 million. Extra pay for our supplemental professional development was 100. Is that right? $1.3 million. I've got to get closer because I can't.
I know, it's kind of hard to see from this angle.
I'm just getting old. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, we're on the same boat.
No, you're the same
Other deal,
Yeah,
other
that's
two don't have any dollar
The
next to
family
it.
engagement and the extra pay for the parent-family engagement, I think you took that out of a different area, didn't you, Diane? So we didn't use it here. And then the indirect cost was $220,000. Looking at you, Marlene, to move it forward.
Oh,
So this is ESER three, it was $51 million, this is the big one. And this one was specifically set aside to address the learning loss. At least 20% of this had to be to address the learning loss. So when we increase that time for our teachers, the 30 minutes a day, that will come out of here. Supplemental instructors for credit recovery will come out of here as well, out of our middle schools and high schools. And the testing resource teachers that we've added at the high schools, that was funded out of ESER two, we'll move into ESER three. Zello, Diane, that's something that was funded or not funded?
It actually hasn't come before the board, but
Okay.
it was written in,
Okay.
as a consideration for post-secondary exploration,
Okay.
as well as career
Okay, career
exploration at the
development.
primary.
Okay. Okay. And then Study Island was also included in this section. What was approved by the grant but denied by the board was the early learning resource teacher that was going to assist with the pre-kindergarten, pre-K, and work across the district. That particular position was not approved. And then Z-Space was not approved by the board. That was within this section of the grant, was approved by the board. The building teacher and leader capacity to address the learning loss, all of those issues, those things were approved by DOE but not approved by the board. The Carnegie work and the TNT work. Science, math, English, language, arts, you'll see a lot in this area. It's a lot with the textbook, the manipulatives, those things we were able to push into the grant. So we've done that. Class libraries, curriculum for intensive reading, the things that weren't approved by the board that was approved by DOE in this section was the TNT work here as well. And Zan Edu, anybody can talk about that a little bit, I'm not sure exactly what that was. Harry, you wanna just at least speak to
It's
it?
just a company that you can access that will provide resources of instructional materials like civics literacy. That's something that is just now coming into play.
Okay,
That we would have worked with them on putting things together for us.
okay. So those two things were in our DOE, plan, but not approved by the board. Activities that were, authorized under IDEA, you can see those listed out. Social skills curriculum, some equipment's in this, some things for, ESE, PLCs for ESE teachers, PD for paraprofessionals, CPI training, 5 supplemental paraprofessionals to be shared among the schools. And then under the Perkins grant, there were certain things that we can purchase, and they gave us the ability to use those types of things in this particular grant in this section. Did I say that right, Diane?
Yes.
So, those are the kinds of things that we pushed into this grant and use our Perkins for some other livestock trading.
I see that on there.
I heard that was quite pricey.
Yeah, I'm sure.
A little Taj Mahal.
Again, activities to address unique students' needs, so the ESOL resource teacher, federal programs resource teacher, assistive technology teacher, hospital homebound teacher, HBS testing resource teacher, literacy teacher, then the .5 math coach and .5 MTSS resource. We were able to put all of that into this grant.
Just remind them that these are already being charged in the two, and once they run out of the two money, we're
Yeah.
starting to charge them the three, so we can carry them on for another year.
That's what I was like, we jumped from 2 to 3 and I never heard the 2 amount.
Yeah, it's all at the end.
Okay,
I'll
I'll
show you
wait till
every
the
bit of
end.
that. I'll get you there, I promise.
Because on those,
22, 23 million.
Go ahead, Diane.
Somewhere.
I
on
saw-
that one where you're seeing the positions, as Mike just mentioned, we're currently funding those in 2. There's no amounts here in 3 because we still have ESSER 2 to pay for them. So
Okay.
nothing has been charged against them in ESSER 3.
Thank you.
Again, training and PD, for sanitation, minimizing spread. ADM air purifiers were in here, remodeling and renovations were in here.
So right here where you're seeing some dollar amounts, as Frank has been working on previously approved projects that are now coming in at a higher cost, where we put them into ESSER 2, we've actually had to tap into ESSER 3 to finish some of those projects. So that's why on ESSER 3, for example, you see an amount with the remodeling and renovations. Then on the sanitizing and cleaning the air purifiers in different capacities, but the ABM contract, we're still working off of ESSER 2, so that money is being used because we're not into ESSER 3 yet, but that's where you see the overlap.
And then technology, lots of things in technology that we'll put into ESSER 3. Our contracted mental health therapist services, you'll see that there. Transportation for after-school tutoring and summer learning. Some of the branching minds was paid for out of this, which you heard about just a few minutes ago. Then in addition to that, our accountant for our ESSER funds that we currently have in place. The recruiter position was paid for out of here. Retention and recruitment incentives, we had over $7 million that went to our staff, all of our faculty and staff. And then the COVID health insurance was $1 million too, so that was very, very helpful as well. So here we go. This is all the ins and outs. ESSER 1, we were budgeted $4 million too. We've expended $4 million too. You remember we had to expend that before we could go into ESSER 3. ESSER 3, we've had $22 million. We've expended $15 million. So our balance is 7. ESSER 3, we had $51 million. We've expended 10. So we have $4 $40 million left. ESSER IDA, we've had 700,000. We've expended 7,400, so we have almost 7,000 left. And the ESSER prepay IDA, we received $46,000. We still have that $46,000. And then the ESSER CTE, we had $252,000, and we still have the $252,000.
I'm sure we're gonna get the slide presentation shared with us, thank you. Yeah, it's a lot to kind
And
of.
so this is where our timeline is. ESSER 1 already spent, that's done. And ESSER 2, as you saw before, out of ESSER 2, we have $7 million. That $7 million will need to be spent by September of next year. ESSER 3, we're sitting with $40 million, plus you see those other pieces, and that will be spent by September 24. I wish we could build wings.
Yeah, that's what I was
Man.
just thinking,
So many things we could do that last a long, long time.
yeah.
So that's what we have left in those different funding accounts. So I know that you had mentioned before Carnegie and Z-Space, after you kind of saw where you were with this, if you want it back to the board, if you don't want it back to the board, I think Jen's just looking for some direction on how you feel about those, and do you want those to come back to you now that you know where we sit with our balances?
Is there any way we could communicate this a little bit more to the public so they'd be aware that we're not spending their tax dollars, that we are spending ESSER funds, and just maybe have another article? I mean, I know we've had some, but just a little bit more of,
I can do
so
anything you want.
everybody, I'd like for everybody to
I can do a
know.
workshop on it, I can do it in our board meeting tonight.
It's not
I
our
can do
tax
it-
dollars from their house they're paying for this money, and I think they just,
Yes,
you know.
Diane.
I can work with Mr. Verity to
Yeah,
make sure
I'd
that
like
it's
to have
pushed out
that, you
onto
know.
social media.
That way, when we do
On our
that,
website, or also
Yeah.
possibly Dr. Longshore on one of your updates.
explaining
we
this
could
to the
share
public.
that,
Yeah.
because I do think it's important for
Yeah,
for
we're not
everyone
just
to know.
spending all their money that they're putting on taxes in their house and stuff, and, you know,
Yes,
we have to
this
do
is not
this.
affecting them
Right.
at all.
No.
And I know some of the times the conversations have been about positions and what's gonna happen when the money goes.
Right.
Because it's people. But what we've tried to do is in working across departments and schools and looking at our needs assessment and our data and our strategic goals, we've really tried to leverage the funds in a way where we can invest in the people that we do have. So the $7 million that have gone out to incentives is to keep the people we have. But where the curriculum specialists and the school administrators have shared with you their curriculum needs, it's to build the staff that we have. So while we're looking to keep them, but it's also knowing we can't always add more people, it's to build what we have. So the Z space, for example, is to make the learning come alive. So where we can't always take kids on a field trip because we don't have bus drivers, we can have them see things come to life. They can look inside the brain. They can go through a zoo interaction type thing. So that's bringing it to them. The TNTP and the Carnegie Learning was to help everything from teacher training to having those materials. Carnegie as well as Xanadu and those things were going to be long-lasting materials that after the money's gone, we would still have those resources.
So absolutely, I can get that
And that's what
information
I'd like,
out to
some
a different.
transparency to say, this is where the money, we have to spend it, we've got, you know, we are being fiscally responsible with the money, we're not just spending tax dollars that are local, and so that we, I mean, that's what I told.
We can put it on the website as well. I know Daryl can do that for us. We can put it out in an article. I can do an update on it. Do you feel like there's any desire of the board for me to do any type of overview at a board meeting or at a workshop? Or do you feel like that would be enough through the social media? Or what's your thoughts on that?
I think it would be hard for them to understand
It's a
something like
lot.
what we, yeah.
It is a
to
lot, and you guys
They're
have
here at
been
the meeting
better
and they're saying, oh my God, that's $7
It's a
million,
lot.
you know?
Yeah.
Because, yeah,
And my fear is bringing Carnegie up again, we brought it up twice, and it has not passed, and we
Right.
bring it a third time, you're gonna get the, unfortunately, the mob just freaking out thinking we're trying to push something past them. Obviously, I was in support of that.
Yeah.
But they need to know where the funds are coming
Right,
from.
that's
It's not-
that's the most important thing for me, is that
And I-
we're explaining that to everybody.
Right, and I think that you're seeing it in print, where they can study the numbers and see them, that's very helpful. Very helpful, and in hearing it just, like, just now, a bunch of numbers,
Sure.
Yeah.
And
it's
you
not as
mentioned-
easy to comprehend and
You mentioned as far as $7 million has
digest.
gone towards incentives to current employees.
That's correct.
That's a number they don't have a clue about.
Right,
You know,
they
that's
need to
one of
know
those
that one
things they
too.
keep saying, let's just spend it on our people in here. We have.
Yeah.
And actually,
we are.
that's strictly the incentives. So that was basically staying with us, $7 million across staff. But then in addition to that people don't know about, is the extra time that we've added on for the schools. In elementary, for example, they've had an 8th hour. Those teachers could stay after school beyond what was their contract day to have additional data analysis and support through professional learning communities. So that's extra time that they're now being paid for.
And we've incentivized summer school as well.
Yes.
so-
Yeah.
Communicate that
Yeah,
a little
quite a
bit more
bit.
than we've done. I'd like to see that. Yeah.
Well, and the other day I was talking to Danielle Irvin with Avon Park High School, and the X space, is that what?
Z-Space.
Z space, thank you. She was saying that she could cut the number of
Stations.
Right, stations.
stations,
Just
yeah,
computer
labs,
labs,
I think she was calling them. But when I talked to Danielle, she said with the amount of students that they have, if you cut the labs down, it would be too hard for the students to get into it, and therefore it wouldn't be nearly as beneficial.
Loses its effectiveness.
That's what
when-
she said, because if you have 3 labs for, 900 kids, they're not gonna get in there. I mean, the
Everyone would
numbers
be
just don't,
fighting for
the numbers
time,
don't
and then
work.
you'd have to sign up for it.
Right, right.
They
So,
would still have the access though, as we continue to work the educational technology amounts that you saw. Daryl has mapped it out, years out, to make sure that we're replacing any broken or non-returned devices that come through. He's also worked to make sure that we're updating the school so that they have the latest technology in terms of projectors, so that they can do the things on a smart board. They can have the audio enhancement so that schools and teachers can utilize the speaker systems so that someone in the back of the room can hear what's happening throughout. So we are working on those enhancements, knowing not everybody can fit in a lab.
right, yeah, and that made so much sense that it just wouldn't work,
And I guess I'm told at the science level, we kind of did a Zoom demonstration possibly. And what was kind of brought to my attention, I told them, I said, call the other board members, I'm just one. But not all standards were covered and virtual lessons were used across a grade level that were identical. So,
As far as Z-Space
Yes,
goes,
ma'am.
Ms. Howerton, do you want to speak to that?
I mean, you don't need to speak to me. You need to sell it to your teachers. That's who I need to hear from. But they said from their observation of it, they said no, at this school. So,
Right, so there are a couple of schools that said we
Don't want it.
don't want it, and so that's included in our quotes that we sent. It reflects that those schools said no. I think some of that depended on the particular demonstration they went to. We did 3 virtuals and 1 face-to-face, where Z-Space came. We looked at several lessons and standards, but it's really impossible in a 1 to 2
yeah,
hour
that's what I
session
thought
to
with the
look at
Zoom,
every
that was kind of hard.
lesson.
Right.
Sure.
Right,
And
right,
every
that.
standard. Now, there are some lessons that would be appropriate for multiple courses or multiple grade levels, and the work that we will have to do if the board moves forward with a yes on that is to really look at the standards and the lessons and link appropriate lessons to the pacing guide, and that work still has to be done. I don't want to waste my teacher's time to do that in advance if then we say no. But we absolutely will provide guidance as to what lessons should be used. Teachers could go beyond that and use other ones if they wanted to, but like a bare minimum, when you're in this unit, go to here and use this particular Z-Space lesson. That work is still to come.
And then one other school said science department had 2 science students were not even aware that it was that the admin was okaying it for them. So they had not given the input yet. So
I just feel more comfortable.
that's what I'm just saying. Anything I think works as long as we have a buy-in from our faculty and
you know, and it takes admin also, but that's where this was some of their concerns that they had brought me after it, so I was just like.
And same from the community. Just like I said, I mean, personally, I just want to make sure that the public understands where the money comes from. We're not spending, this is money we have to spend. We have a timeline on this, and this is the money that we're spending, that we're appropriately spending in a way that we need to. And if that's okay, then I'm okay with spending it. But not till then, because then it looks like we're spending local tax dollars.
And you know, it's such a gift to be given that kind of money. I mean, in our lifetime, we will never see this
That's why I said
kind
let's
of
hope
money.
not, because
That's
that
right,
means we have
that's
to
right.
go through something else like COVID again.
And really, when you're given the gift of that kind of money, you want to move student achievement. I mean, that's really where we don't want to get to the end of the day. And Frank, I don't mean any disrespect, but we don't want to just say all of our air conditioning vents are working really good across our school campuses. You know, when you got that $75 million at the end of the day, you want to be able to say, we have done these kind of things, and we have actually closed the gap. We have engaged kids in work. So whatever it is that we decide to move forward with as a board, I just want that to be our main focus on, as we're spending this money, whatever it is that we make that decision on, that, first of all, everybody's in, you're right, you know, that there's a buy-in there.
And that it's actually gonna benefit our students.
And that it's going to benefit our students. And I think they probably had you guys at the very beginning, they certainly did me, when I looked at it, I'm like, oh my goodness, you know, things are coming out of the screen
Oh,
now.
yeah.
It's a big number, there's no question about it, but the engagement of kids make a difference. So.
Well, and we don't want to give them back money. I mean,
Oh, no.
you know, I
No.
mean, we don't want to
No,
waste
No,
it by
we
any
certainly don't
stretch,
want to
but-
give them back money.
We also don't wanna get a product that teachers aren't gonna use because they don't have buy-in.
That's exactly, or enough, you know, like you're saying, that if you've got one, it'll sit in the corner. If I've got a class size, then it'll work. So for what I'm hearing from you guys then is we can put out some social media information. I can do some things on the web to maybe more clearly depict where those dollars have gone, not to that deep degree, like the deep dive, but more clearly understand what the purpose of the ESSER dollars were, how it was funded, how we received it, and what we've spent thus far and how much we have left. And then in addition to that, probably no face-to-face, is that what you're saying at this time as far as doing any kind of workshop or anything of that? You feel like that will get the word out enough through the social media platforms, maybe the piece in the paper?
Or even here, but not to
So
that
deep.
detailed.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
just maybe the last couple of slides,
Like-
the
yeah,
big picture stuff.
Exactly,
This is
yeah.
what we got, this is how much money we got, this is how much we spent,
Yeah.
and this is what we have to spend by this date. If we can get that much.
That's pretty
Yeah,
easy
the
to
basics,
Right,
put
and
in
what I'm
the table.
saying, when we were even talking about the
Or we gotta
the
give it back.
program, this is where the money was coming out of, yeah. 'Cause they get up there and yell and say, well,
$7
let's
million,
give it all
oh
to
my
the
gosh,
teachers.
yeah.
Well, it doesn't work
Yeah,
that way.
well, and someone told me, actually it was my son, who said, you know, I'm sure they inflated the price of that program. And I said, yeah, I'm sure they did,
'cause they
just
know,
like
nationwide
everyone
they
else
got it,
has
yeah.
inflated their prices. They
Because
know the
without-
money is there.
Without ESSER funds, there is no way
Oh,
of even
no
looking
way.
at this whatsoever.
No.
So,
No.
so when ESSER funds go away, are they gonna go on sale?
That's what.
You know, is it gonna be,
Even
it's gonna
so,
be
I
like
don't think we
75%
can
off?
afford it.
Because realistically, there's no way they could touch this if it wasn't for the ESSER funds.
Exactly.
I'm still not sold on TNTP, because for 2015 to 2022, we spent $400,000. And now for some reason, for 1 year, for the two to do elementary and secondary, it's gonna be $1 million.
But they know we
So-
have this funding.
I know,
mean,
that's
I'm
what I'm
sorry,
saying. They're
I-
price
yeah.
gouging us, folks, and so, you know, somebody ought to step in and, I mean,
Well,
they
I
get
think
onto
the
other
scope
people
of
for
work is
price
different.
gouging, but.
It is, the scope of work is different, and that's why in planning all of the considerations between putting more money in our staff, investing in additional remediation and tutoring for students, extra time for teachers with planning, extra resources in manipulatives as well as Z-space or any of those other things, the consideration is really to layer it all together. We could get Z-space, but for the teachers that don't know how to use it or have the buy-in, that's where TNTP or Carnegie filled that gap. So that way it wasn't just, here, we got this for you. It was how to use it, and building the pacing guides and curriculum was going to be facilitated by our content specialists, our academic coaches, as well as our contracted services if we purchase through TNTP and or Carnegie. That was the additional work that we added on. they work for us. So yes, it is a higher cost, but that's because we were bringing more to the table for them to do. That was the
And
increase
the ones
in
that I talked to
cost.
at the secondary level said, you know what, Ms. Howerton, if you're gonna prioritize, I won the Carnegie. Some were very interested in the Z space, but they were just like, the TNTP's kinda getting redundant. You know, so I was like, okay.
Yeah.
You're my voice.
I think it was, yeah, one or the other. I don't think, you know, I agree. But,
Carnegie had a lot better price.
yes, they did. And I think that the people around the district wanted it, you know?
Well, we heard from them.
Yeah,
Yeah, we actually told them to give it to everyone at the middle schools, but it wasn't given, so, we were all in favor of that, so.
So, I'll get the information out electronically, and we can do a piece in the paper and.
Share that out everywhere.
We'll share that
Can
out.
we share it on the Facebook? Get John to share it on the Facebook?
We can do
can
all
all
those
share
types
it,
of
yeah.
things.
Instagram?
Can you do that tonight during your superintendent's report? Just a
Yes.
brief, yeah, because
Yep.
they heard us talk about, as far as this funding, they need to know where it's coming from, what the amount is, how much we spent, and just, like I said, just a
Yep,
quick
let me cut these
synopsis.
slides down real quick, just to 3 or 4 slides, and then give them a review of
That'd
that.
be great.
How about
I
that?
think that'd go a long way.
Okay,
Any public comment? You're dealing public, so.
all right. let me get
Cal, this
working on that
workshop
then.
adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who took the time and effort to get all this information together.
I got something on the document.